I'm Lynn Jordan, and I'm thrilled to be here today. I've been working with computers and also writing for probably longer than most of you have been alive. This just merges my two passions, and I'm finding these author sessions for me global just so wonderful and helpful. So I'm glad to be a part of this one today.
Thank you for joining us, Lynn. I really appreciate you stepping in as co host. Sit tight and get ready for a stimulating discussion on AI and chapter story beats. Let's dive in. Today's objectives: what you'll learn. The rhythm of story beats is so pivotal in your body of work. We're going to dive into the significance of these beats and orchestrating the pacing and emotional cadence of a chapter. Now, AI enhanced beat creation, that is a wonderful way to use AI as a resource. Using AI to transform chapter summaries into a series of impactful moments and events is just something that I could have never dreamed of, not even 5 years ago. The fact that we can take AI and use it to organize our thoughts just with a snap of a finger, with just a couple of sentences into the message center, I can direct the AI to completely rearrange chapters, to rearrange some of those plot points if something's not working. And I feel that something's not boding well with a story or a chapter. I can ask ChatGPT 4 or any of the LLMs to evaluate that section. And it's great because it feels like you have another ear to talk to. I know that the AI is just a really supercharged predictive index, but the fact that it can go in, analyze my content, pinpoint areas, and then give me some suggestions that I can grab and run off with, that is great because there are times when you feel stuck and you're not sure what direction to go, or you're so close to the work that you just feel stuck. And that's where some people might say, wow, I have writer's block today. I don't know which direction to go. Using AI has just really helped so many authors today. Now, crafting hooks and cliffhangers. This is something that I really want to drive home today. Every single one of your chapters, I don't care if you have 5 chapters in a short story or if you have 30 chapters or more inside of a full length novel, you want to make sure that you are crafting a hook at the opening. That first paragraph of every single chapter should actually have an opening hook as that first sentence. It needs to engage the reader. We want to be sucked in and pulled in. Think about when you are watching a television show and the very first part of that show, when that teaser opens up, it has action. That opening scene, that teaser, is not going to have somebody sitting there thinking, years ago, I really liked that ice cream cone that I got from the claymation place down the street. And I think I'm going to walk down there. Okay, so we don't have our characters reminiscing or ruminating. We don't want to start that way. We want to start the same way, that action packed teaser of one of the series that we like to watch. We want to start our chapters that way. So we want to craft a hook. We want to grab that reader and keep that person engaged. So we can engage the AI to help us design those compelling openings. Now, every chapter that you have should also end with a cliffhanger. Think of it when a television series that you're watching, you are all engrossed in it and you're like, oh my gosh, something's going to happen. It's going to be explosive. And I need to know. You're at the edge of your seat, your heart is pumping. And then all of a sudden, they go to a commercial break. And you're like, what just happened? That's exactly what you want your reader to think when they are reading something at the end of your chapter. You want to keep them engaged. You don't want to give them a nice, comfy little area where it has all these nifty little ties and bows. You don't want it all wrapped up for them so that they can feel warm and cozy at 2 in the morning. You don't want them to close that book. No, you want to be the reason why they are tired tomorrow morning when they wake up to go to work. The best compliment that I have ever had from people is when a reader messages me and says, "Oh my gosh, I am so tired today, but it was worth it. I could not put that book down." That's what your hooks and your cliffhangers can do for you. You'll also learn to map time and setting details. We talked a little bit about that in yesterday's segment. It's really important to be able to orient your reader so that they know what time it is, they know the season, they know the setting. There is nothing worse than reading the opening of a chapter and you think that they're in one place, but then all of a sudden you find out that instead of being in a living room, they are off in a truck somewhere going barreling down a highway, and you didn't even know that. So make sure you're orienting your readers. They need to know, what time is it? What day is it? If the passage of time is important, make sure you are cluing your reader in. And also, make sure that the reader knows where the character is at. Remember, the world that you have built is not a backdrop. It's not just some really pretty picture that you have painted and then decided that you are going to show it in the background as a thumbnail. That is not what you're setting is the world that you have created, and your characters live in there. They live in there, sleep in there, eat in there. They have good times, they have bad times. Breathe life into that world by giving a setting. Now, the nuances of tone and voice. You want to harness the AI to ensure that each one of your chapter's tone aligns with its event. This is one of the things that I find, whether it is AI writing or somebody who is writing traditionally without the use of AI, you want to make sure that the stakes in that chapter match the tone. So if the stakes in that chapter are not dire, then the tone should not be dire. But if there is something happening in that chapter and there's impending doom, then yes, your tone should reflect that. You want to also make sure that you are clear about the events and that you are building that tension. And the best way to build tension in your story beats is to make sure that each one of your beats contains action. And this is why I tell people you don't want your character to reminisce, you don't want them to have a lot of rumination, you don't want them to rehash what the reader has already read, because there is nothing worse than watching a television show and you are about midway in the series, and then all of a sudden they just start throwing a whole bunch of scenes from past episodes just because they're trying to fill space. That's boring. And you want the show to get to the good part. That's how your reader feels. So make sure you are engaging your readers. You want every chapter to enhance the reader experience. So you need to make sure that tone is reflective and that your beats are active. I know that we touched upon this tried and true formula. I am going to keep drilling this formula time and time again because this is the heart of your story. And if you don't know what your story is about, how can you explain it to somebody? If you are stuck in an elevator, say with the publisher of your dream, or say you walk in and you are at some type of a conference and you get to walk into a room with e-global, say, acquisition editors, and you walk in and you're mingling with them. And one of those e-global individuals walks up and says, "Hey, what is your story about? What are you working on currently? I'd love to know about your creative work." Could you convey to that individual what your story is about in 1 to 3 sentences? Could you give them a broad stroke of what your story is about? If not, then I highly recommend that you really dive into this because You know your story. It is living in your head, but often writing something short, like this little sentence here, when a major event happens, the central character must perform this main action or goal, and this important thing is at stake because of the antagonistic force. You also want to add what happens if they don't achieve that goal. If you know all of those aspects and somebody asks you, you know what? You're going to be engaging that individual. So practice that. Practice that with your family, with your friends, with anybody who finds out that you are an author so that you can relay that just on a moment's notice. And again, I can't stress that enough. Now, if my voice comes in and out, I do apologize. I have been battling some really tough allergies and sinus issues here this week. Now, one of the things that I want you to think about when you are putting together your story beats, for each one of your chapters, I want you to ask yourself, have you started this story in the right place or this chapter in the right place? Do you have a hook that catches the reader? If, again, like I said, if you're in an elevator with a publisher or editor, can you describe your story? Have you found a flow to your online or writing? Do you have a dedicated space to sit down and write? Are you being consistent? Have you set up a regular routine so that you're in your story daily? Do you know what your character wants? What does your character need? What motivates your character? What is the overall theme of your story? And you definitely want to know what the catalyst of your story is. What is that event that jumpstarts the story and sends your character into the brand new world? What is the point of no return? That's where there's a split in a road that forces a character to go down one path instead of the other. Now, that fork in the road, that is so important because depending on the direction that character goes, they can either stay in the world that they're in or they can go down a path that they have never gone down before. They want to go down that brand new path. If they don't go down that brand new path, guess what? You don't have a story. So make sure you know where your story is going. And again, I can't stress it enough. What motivates your character? What motivates the love interest, the protagonist, the antagonist? What motivates your characters and moves them forward? Let's go ahead and begin. I'm going to dive into working on fleshing out our story summaries, the ones that we were working on yesterday. And you saw how intricate that was and how much time it took to really dig down deep because you have to keep asking yourself questions. Now, before we do begin, are there any questions at this point in the session?
I don't have any in chat.
Okay. And don't be bashful. If you have a question, you can either raise your hand, you can place it in chat. And if there's a question that you have that you're not sure how to word in chat, then go ahead and unmute yourself and let's have a conversation. Whoops, we don't want to leave the meeting. Yesterday, we were playing around with some of our chapters like here on chapter 7, we do have beats. Remember, we were setting up the day and time. We were setting up the characters, the location, the character's voice. We want to know where our characters are going. We want to set the stage. That first part yesterday, where we were setting up our chapter summaries, that is so important because that gives us a bird's eye view of where our characters are going, how our story is flowing. Now, yesterday I talked about how I just really love to use vellum when I am plotting out content. As you can see on screen, I have a vellum file up and I'm actually going to scroll up here and I am going to show you that I have my title page, I have my content, I have my extended synopsis, my character list. I have all of these items listed in here. If you use Scrivener or even a Word document, you can list all of your characters this way. You can make changes and updates. This is just the process that works for me. In addition to that, if I scroll further, I have my chapter summaries. I have my themes. I have my tropes listed. While I am fleshing out my content, if I notice that there are some new themes or tropes, I will ask ChatGPT 4 to go ahead and give me a new list, and I will update the list that I have here. That way, I know exactly what content I have in my body of work. And I also break down each one of my chapter summaries. So you see that I have 25 chapters listed here. And I have those chapters there because each one of those has my summary. So if I were to go through this and show these to you, you would see that I have already gone in. I have my beats for every single one of these, and I flesh them out. I even have little notes here that chat has left for me, and I have gone back and forth with chat. Today, I know I said yesterday I would load some videos. I got a little bogged down with fleshing out all of these chapter summaries, and time got away from me. So all of those videos will be up today. I actually have one rendering that should be dropping sometime soon today. Now, again, I have my chapter 4. I have it broken down. I have had it list specifics about my little summaries. I have that irresistible draw. I have a subtle approach. I have the shadowed watcher. I have a mystical caution. I like when I get Chat GPT 4 to give me a little indication at a quick glance what each one of my beats is about. So today we are going to go ahead and go with that first chapter. And as you saw yesterday, we went round and round with this opening chapter. And I can't stress enough how important that first chapter is. That first chapter, that first sentence, that first paragraph. It is so important when you have your prose written. That content is going to catch your reader. And the best way to do that is in these planning stages for you to make sure that you have solid beats that's going to give the reader something to latch on to. So, yesterday, I was talking with Lynn and Cece, and we discussed how Laura and Cleo are strolling into Central Park. We know that they're going to play some type of a game in Central Park, and they're meeting other people to do this. So we thought, what kind of action could our characters encounter? We decided that there should be a dog chase, that there should be this huge, massive dog running across the park, barreling toward some woman and a little bitty furry Pomeranian. And this little bitty tiny dog is just bark bark. And this big dog is just like foaming out the mouth, fixing to grab the little dog. And then all of a sudden, you see this great big massive dog, tail between the legs, whimpering and walking off. And you see this Pomeranian standing its ground. Later on, the reader will discover that cute, fluffy little Pomeranian with the annoying bark. That little cute, fluffy dog is a hellhound in disguise. So you want to plant these seeds. You want to start with some action. You want to make sure that your body of work is going to catch your reader. And the best way to do that is to massage your story beats. So we're going to do that today by taking this content right here where we see our beats. We're going to flesh those out and make those into either 12 or 14 story beats that will make up our first chapter. So let's go ahead and before we dive into that, are there any questions?
Nothing in the chat.
Lynn, is there anything that you would like to add to this? Because I know as a pantser, this is probably a lot more planning than what you tend to do. But I know that just from listening to you and watching you work in Rexy or in some of the other LLMs, that you do plan and that you do some pretty intricate work. as a pantser. So, is there anything that you would like to add for a pantser who may be looking to use AI to flesh out their story beats?
I think I was designed for pantsers, actually. I like to let the AI give me ideas. I treat that as a junior writing partner. And I say, here's this vague idea I have. Why don't you go work it up? And then when I see it, I can say, no, this is wrong. This wouldn't work. You can't do that. And I can guide it. But I love being surprised by the story.
I'm okay with some surprises. I don't want a complete surprise that just freaks me out.
I don't like those freak out surprises either, which sometimes you get, but
Oh,
that's not.
so there is a question inside of the chat. For a chapter that is only about 50 to 2,000 words, would you still recommend to use 12 to 14 beats? No, I would not. If you were looking to stay in the range of, say, 1,500 to 2,000 beats, I would recommend that you maybe stay within 8 to 10 beats. And the reason I say that is because most LLMs will give you about 250 words or so per beat. And what I would recommend you do is if you are going to give one beat at a time, then I would go with 4 to 5 beats. If you are going to actually combine your beats like many of the LLMs do, then you would take beat 1 and 2 as a stride, and you would ask the LLM to go ahead and write prose for those first 2 beats. And then it would spit out, I'd say, I think the most that I see chat giving me sometimes can be 4 to 600 words. On a really good day, it could give me a little bit more than that, but on average, I get about 400 to 500. So you can see how that can really go up in number. If you are using, say, if you're working inside of pseudo-write story engine, then yeah, I would go ahead and stick to the 8 to 10 or even the 6 to 8 beats because you want to have enough of a story that it's going to flesh that content out. But you also want to make sure that your beats do not move too fast and flow through the story too quickly. So my beats move a bit slower. But if you condense all of the stuff that I have inside of my summaries and you try to do it at, say, 1,000 words or 1,500 or 2,000 words, then it might move through the action too fast. So if you want to write a really shorter chapter, you need to make sure that your beats reflect more of the action on a almost a bulleted step by step. It's almost like you are zooming in to try and show it blow by blow. My story concept that I am using and the flow that I use for my chapters is probably going to generate probably in the upward of, say, 3,000 to maybe 4,500 words. And I like to have more words to play with because I cut a lot of content and I will rewrite the different type of wording that's in there, especially if I feel that it has too much of that, oh, we're in this together, or oh, let's do this. I don't like all those pretty bows and ties that the AI likes to leave. I like to have more active writing. And so I do shave off quite a bit of content. I hope that answers your question. Go ahead and go.
Yes.
And let me grab my prompt. If you've seen any of my videos, I love prompts. And the reason why I have so much stuff in my prompts is because there are certain story elements that I want ingrained inside of my story beats, things that are important to me and to the way that I want my content to flow. Remember earlier, I was talking about how we want each one of our chapters to open with that hook and we want it to close with those cliffhangers. So, one of the things that I found with working with the LLM, and if you are in the Slack for, say, pseudo or in the Slack for, or in the Discord for FFA, if you're in either one of those, you will hear people talk about how they want their content to have the feel and the tone of a television drama. And that is one of the best ways to describe how we want something to be active. So, this is the reason why you see that inside of my step 6. I want 14 numbered beats. Now, again, that's going to give me on the upward of well over the 3,000, closer to the 4,000 mark. I'm asking it to do that for each one of my chapter summaries. I want it to have a TV drama style opening hook and cliffhanger. And I am reminding it, I know that I did it in the summary, but I am reminding the AI that the odd chapter should be from the protagonist and the even from my love interest. If you only have one POV all the way through, then you would just make a change right there and you would just state that there is only one point of view and you would state who that POV is. Who is that POV character? And you could even state that when the prose is written, that it will be in, say, a first or third. I'm not too worried at this point or this stage in the game. Right now, I just need my AI assistant to go in and make sure that it's telling me that chapter 1 is my protagonist, chapter 2 is my love interest. And the reason I do that is because chapter 1 I should not see any other character's perspective in there except for Laura, because Laura is the head that we are in. Chapter 2 is the love interest. We should not see anybody else's perspective except for his, because I don't want to head hop. I am not using a third person, all knowing perspective. I am not using that narrator who knows the ins and outs of every character. I am using a limited POV. I am limited to my first person, and that first person POV is alternating between two characters every other chapter. Now, all of my, you notice I'm stating it again. And why do I do that? Because AI just really doesn't listen sometimes. So I give it at least, I'll list it at least 3 times. I'm also reminding it that I need that Myers-Briggs type. If one has already been assigned, then that's fine. I want it kept just the way it is. But I use the Myers-Briggs because it helps the AI know what kind of character I have. And by that personality profile, it will help to drive my prose and give my characters different voices. And there's nothing worse than reading a book and being confused because all the characters sound the same. You want your characters to be different. We also want to have some details about the characters, their physical attributes. We want to wrap in there their strengths, their weaknesses, motivations. We also want some of those themes and tropes for each one of the chapters to be wrapped in there. That's really important. Now, each summary needs to note the day, the time, and location. And one of the interesting things, if you're using AI, you want to avoid pronouns, especially say you have a scene that has 2 females and a male. And maybe one of those females has a name that is ambiguous. Maybe one of the individual's name is, maybe her name is Taylor. And there are males and females named Taylor. It is a unisex name. If Sally and Elizabeth are talking, or Sally and let's say Nick are talking with Taylor, if we're using a whole bunch of pronouns and we are indicating that he is talking to her, how does the AI know which her is being talked to? Or if we are having a discussion and Nick is talking to Taylor, but we haven't indicated in the character list that Taylor is a female, then because our chapters can be siloed sometimes, we need the AI to know that Taylor is a female. Because if the AI does not know that in the character list, guess what? One beat when the AI is writing the prose, one beat, Taylor might be a girl. The next beat, Taylor might be using male pronouns. The third beat, Taylor might be using they, them pronouns. You have to be specific. Same thing, if you have a binary character, make sure that you are designating that individual's preferred pronouns. Also, I am asking for it to have a seamless transition. I want to make sure that each one of my beats flows into each other and that my chapters flow into each other. I want the AI to apply drivers and guardrails and focus points. Now, are there any questions before I continue to wrap up the information about the template?
Not in the chat, and I have put the prompt in the chat.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much, Lynn. Also, you want to only provide characters with the appropriate pronouns. Again, I can't stress that enough. If you have very specific characters and if anything is ambiguous, make sure you are clear. You can even layer that into your beats. Again, you want to remember to identify the main events and the happenings. If there is mystery and suspense plot points or romantic points or encounters or those essential elements of the manuscript's main beats, the reason why I have that clause in here is because it cues the AI to go back and look at the content that you have created. And I also left it a note to tell the AI that my story takes place over hours to days, sometimes days to weeks, which is okay for this story. But that other story that I was talking about yesterday, where my story had 30 chapters and it took place over 3 days, I had to designate in my prompt that the first 10 chapters were on day one. So I began to wrap everything into my chapter story beats that would say that maybe chapter one beats, maybe those beats all had to happen in a 2 hour period of time. And so I needed to have maybe 15-minute increments to show the passage of time. And I do that because I needed to make sure that the AI stayed on task. So think about your chronological order of events and how you can wrap that into your story beats. Also, I need to remind the AI to not forget to wrap in those guardrails, the focus points, the drivers, and other items that might be necessary for the beats. And some of those things that you may have to prompt the AI to remember is that if your love interest is in a chapter with your protagonist, or say the antagonist is there, but your protagonist does not know that individual, you need to make sure you are telling your AI in the beat that the characters do not know each other. And otherwise, your love interest and your protagonist, if this is an enemies to lovers or a romance, the guy could propose and they could get married and have a happy ever after inside of that first chapter. That's why it's important to make sure that you are cueing in the AI using your beats. Now, I am going to ask for the AI to use a specific format. This is familiar from yesterday. I am still asking the AI to follow through with this format. As you can see, I am asking it to do 14 numbered beats. Right here, I need to make sure that the AI is going to stay on track. Now, do you notice where it says paste your story content if needed? Let me tell you, it is needed. You want to make sure that every single one of your chapters that you are going in and drilling down into and expanding, you want to make sure that you are going in and grabbing that chapter summary every single time. So, what am I going to do every time I am drilling down? I'm going to use my prompt and I'm going to paste it above every single one of my chapter summaries, one at a time. Okay, so there is a question for the timeline. Do you think that we should be extremely specific if it takes place during a particular season and in 2 or 4 week period to state that the story takes place in March? Yes, actually, as Lynn said, it depends on the needs of your story. If this story is taking place in March and you have not told the AI what kind of weather or the temperature, you could end up with snow. You could end up with a rainy season. If you are not telling the AI that it is sunny skies or a warm, sweltering heat is taking place, then how does the AI know how to describe that setting? Again, you want to be clear. Everything that you would think of when you are writing out your story, you need to make sure that you are directing the AI in that direction. You need to make sure that you're listing it. What if it is 8 a.m. and you need your character to rush to work? Or say it is maybe the individual is a college student and maybe that individual takes classes, but instead of having an 8 a.m. class, maybe that character has a 6 p.m. class. The AI may not know that if you don't give the AI that direction. So the AI could have your character taking an 8 a.m. class when you want it to be in the evening because you want something to happen in the darkness. So again, be specific. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this prompt. And earlier, I copied my very first story beat summary, and I already placed that in here. And I did state that it's Laura's POV. I'm more than likely going to change this last name because Thompson seems to be a name that the AI likes to use repetitively. So one of the names that I did come up with was so if I want to use, and I like the fact that I can wrap in some lore that may be handed down with her family. And I want that content in there. I want some diversity within my story. Laura's last name, her surname is Martinez. She is single, so that is her birth name. Anna's name, no, Anna's surname is, let's go back in and
It's Martinez right here.
let me go back in and look at what I gave her.
I think that's the one that AI changed last night on you.
Oh, yeah. So you know what? I need to use another one. So let's use Rodriguez. Or we could use, let's see, let's use Solis. Good catch, by the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into her character list and I'm going to take that out and I'm going to use Solis. And I'm going to have to go in and make updates. Now, I could have done that here, or I could have done that once I'm finished writing my body of work. Now, I could have made my character have a Dutch surname, could have been any surname from any nationality, ethnicity, any character that I want her to portray. So now that I have my chapter one here, I am going to I'm hitting my shift key and I'm going to hit enter a few times because I like to have the space. I like to see my content lined up. Now, as you can see, I have my prompts in here. I have my step 6 prompt. It is to write those 14 numbered beats. We've already gone over this. I am now going to go in and I'm going to have my AI write. Now, one of the things that's interesting, if you go in and you have changed names and the and if you have both names in there at the same time, the AI may pick up on that and may ask you which name that you want. But if you don't catch it, then the AI may decide to pick one over the other, and then it could cause an inconsistency. So just like what I did earlier, if I had used Martinez and had maybe gone all the way through and didn't realize that Anna is a Martinez and that my character, my protagonist is a Martinez, then I could have created some type of a conflict there. The AI may have decided that, you know what, maybe Anna and Laura are related, and maybe that's not what I wanted. So you would have to really focus on the names to make sure that you are not layering in anything that could cause confusion for the AI. So make sure that you are being clear and specific. So let's go ahead and hit this and see where it takes us. And with any luck, it is behaving today. Okay, so it is starting out with chapter 2. So the AI did not listen. So I am going to go back up. I am going to grab this. I am going to grab all the content once again, and I'm going to state, no, that's incorrect. I actually have the names of the characters listed. And because the AI has already created this story and has everything in the thread, and because I have already reintroduced the character list again, I want to say probably about less than 10 pages ago, that content is still being held. Yeah. And if I mispronounced your name, I do apologize.
It's just that you wanna be careful because the AI really likes to use the same names over and over. That's one thing that sort of the indication that it may have been written by AI.
Yes. So I'm going to tell it again. No, that's incorrect. Please use the content given and write the 14 beats for chapter one. You'll find the summary below. So I am going to go ahead and give it that content again. So it is giving me who Laura is. And did you notice how it is giving me her Meyer-Briggs? That's so important because now we know that some of the characteristics of that Meyer-Briggs is that she's introverted, she's intuitive, feeling, and judging. We know that this is who she is at the core. Now you notice that it is giving me this information on my characters. I actually like this whenever I am writing my first chapter and I'm having an AI generate my prose. I will leave this physical description inside of my beat card. And I do that because I want some form of a description. Now, the one thing that you do have to watch is that Laura should not be describing her skin tone. She should not be describing the length of her hair. She should not be saying things like, I'm scanning the Central Park Trail with my hazel eyes. She should not be doing that. There are other ways to work that in there. There could be a conversation. Maybe Cleo is saying, hey, I really like the updo. It really brings out the tones in your honey brown hair. So her roommate, her friend, could be the one that makes a comment. And somebody else could make a comment about, wow, your eyes are really piercing. You could have people talk about that in dialogue. You could have somebody ask, hey, you have unusual eyes. What color are they? And then that could spark a conversation. Those are some things that I will ingrain or actually rewrite when I'm editing prose. Now, you would not leave this content in every single chapter, and there's a reason for that. You might want it in some chapters, but if it's in every single chapter, she might continuously discover her past and connection to the magical realm every single chapter, and you don't want that. So pick and choose the things that you want to use when you are directing the AI. Some of this information is actually more for me as a writer, and some of it I'll need to prompt the AI to use later. But I like all this at a bird's eye view. Now we have all of our characters, we have their descriptions. It's a good way for you to do a quick check and say, okay, you know what? All this information, I understand who my character is, and you can keep that consistency. We already know that this is the location that we are at. It has kept that Central Park, New York, near an old historic signpost marking a trail. We know that right now that the character's voice should take on a startled, reflective, observant tone. We know that the story tone should actually convey some unexpected surprise. We should have a hint of suspense. There should be some undercurrents of intrigue. So let's take a look. Now, we may need to massage these beats because what we get may not be in the order that we want them in. So let's take a look. Are there any questions before we dive into these?
Not in the chat.
Anything that you would like to add, Lynn? And is there something specific that you like to do when you are fleshing out the beats?
I did have my own method for doing that, and then I ran into your template, and I've been using that ever since.
So, one of the things I found really interesting with Lynn is that she's a pantser. And with me being a plotter planner, it was really interesting to see how she took elements of my template along with the different things that she does as a pantser. And then she wrapped some of the things that she liked that she was doing into the template, and she made the template her own. And that is what I encourage anyone to do. It's really cool to see how she took the template, she reworded stuff, rearranged stuff, broke it up the way that it made sense to her. And then she went into Rexy, which is another LLM, and she was actually using the template in segments and uploading that content and fleshing out one of her stories. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because we have two completely different styles. She's a pantser, I'm a plotter planner, but we both found a way to use a single template and make it work for us. And I encourage you to play with different templates, whether it is mine or other people's. Play with it and take the elements that work for you and create a process that is unique to you and helps you achieve what you need. Again, I give everybody free reign to take those prompts, change them into something of your own, and make it work for your story.
Now, there
So
is no one right way or wrong way.
that is
You have
100% correct.
you have to figure out what works for you, because what works for me would not work for Marigold, and vice versa.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Lynn, I could not sit there the way you do. And she's like, I already have a story summary, but you know what? I like this. And she just came up with something on the fly right there while she was writing. And she's like, okay, you know what? I'm going to have my character go down this path and I'm going to change this and do this right now. And just right there on the fly. And I was like, Lynn, so what's going to happen? What's going to happen 5 chapters from now? She's like, I don't know, but it's going to be exciting to find out. And I told her, oh my gosh, that would just stress me out so much. But that's because I'm not a pantser, and that's okay. That process works for Lynn. It may not work for me, but I actually learned something valuable from watching Lynn do that. I learned to be more flexible with my content, and flexibility is important.
very
Let's take a look. We have a designated beat one that says that it should be a hook. Laura's in the historic signpost area, but she has contemplation. But what is she contemplating? That is way too vague. Let's see. She's contemplating a connection to her past, and it's abruptly interrupted by a large dog chasing their way or or charging their way. I'm okay with the animal charging, but I need some information, more information inside of that hook. If I want her to be contemplating and thinking about a connection to her past, I need to show something. Maybe I need to put in there in that hook that Laura and Cleo are talking, and that maybe Laura says, hey, I've seen that signpost. And then maybe have Cleo go on with that conversation and say, hey, I think you're right. Wasn't that in your photo album? And because they're friends and they've been around with each other, been with each other so long, maybe they could talk about how, wow, isn't that the same signpost in your mom's picture? That is so much better than contemplating and having her reminisce or ruminate on something that's inactive. That puts it right in the dialogue, has them talking, has them a bit distracted about everything that's around them in the park. And the next thing they know, they hear this loud, loud bark. They see this dog barreling across. We need to convey that to the AI so that the AI knows that's what's happening in beat one. So I apologize if there's some pausing here. If y'all have questions, feel free to unmute and talk. And Lynn, if there's anything that you want to add, by all means, or any points that you want to touch upon on here, take tag, you are it.
okay. When have you ever known me to hold back?
Never, but I love that about you.
There's the most I can stress is to figure out what works for you because every writer is different. Every writer approaches things in a different way.
So we're going to have them talk about the murder mystery game, if I can spell.
And also, do not be afraid to argue with the AI. Last night it was not behaving, and when Mira and I were working on some things, and sometimes you really have to argue with it and tell it where it's wrong. That's why, at least in the current technology, you'll never be able just to push a button and have it spit out something acceptable because it is wrong about so much.
So you notice that I'm adding additional content in here, and I do this for all of my beats. And this is how I plot my stories. Now, does this differ from what I used to do when I wasn't using AI? Not that much because I pretty much plot everything out. I may not go in as great detail whenever I am planning and plotting something out that I write manually, but here, you betcha, I am going to be very specific because I want the AI to write what I want it to write.
And in this case, instead of having it rewrite this, I would go into beat one and I would make the changes there,
And
make sure that it had what I wanted.
and you could do that. And one of the things that I like to do if I'm in here and I am doing my beats, because I like for the AI to rearrange stuff, and maybe some of this content is okay, but maybe some of it is not, I will go ahead and direct the AI and I will tell it what I want because any change that I make in here, it could potentially impact my other beats, or it could impact something in a future chapter. I do impart things here, and I like to really, really dig down into these. Now, I know that I've watched Lynn, and she will take beats and she will just completely rewrite everything that she wants to change. And to me, it's like, oh my gosh, haven't you already decided on a direction? And she's like, oh, yeah, but that was yesterday. Today, I have a brand new direction that I'm going. And I applaud pantsers for doing that because they are constantly moving forward at a very rapid rate. And their story threads are changing, they are winding around, and that works for them. For me as a plotter, that doesn't work for me. And I need to know the direction that I'm going. And it would just stress me out.
What used to be before in the days before AI is I would write a whole bunch of words in one direction and then change my mind and go back and write it in another direction. So it saves me so much time. But we do have a question about would we ask AI to design dialogue?
So I can ask for now, AI will automatically give you dialogue when you are writing, when you get to do the prose. Now, you could here in the beat say that you want a couple of punchy or edgy or dark dialogue comments that represent the tone or mood of that beat. You could ask it to do that. Or you could impart content like what I'm doing here, where I'm saying that Laura freezes mid sentence. And because I'm saying that, when the AI writes the prose, it's going to be looking at that and it's going to later on in the prose generation, it's going to have them talking, it's going to have her freezing mid sentence, and then it's going to have, I can put that in dialogue here in this beat and then when the AI does the prose, it will actually take that dialogue word for word and put it in there and wrap it with the conversation. I hope that answers your question there.
You would, as far as developing the character voice, what you can do is you can put in your character description. Are they are they always cheerful? Are they always moody and gloomy? So that way the AI will pick that up whenever that character speaks. And of course, if the character is out of character in a particular, you can certainly specify that in the beat itself. Any more questions? And sometimes I would just tell the AI what they're talking about and let it. generate the dialogue and see what it comes up with. And of course, if it's not what I have in mind, or if I think I have a better idea, I would very quickly argue with it. That say they wouldn't say that; they would say this, or I like to ask it why. Why is this character doing that? And usually it comes back and says, "You're right. This character wouldn't do that. I apologize. Here's another version." Now, see, Mira's writing so much that I think it would be for me, it would be easier just to go back and put that in each individual beat.
I'm going to ask it a question. I'm going to ask it if I need this to be broken up. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is to model this is what I want happening in my opening. Now, one of the things that you have to be careful of, and to Lynn's point, is that if you have really heavy, dense content inside of your beats, then you may have so much that it strangles the AI. And that is something that definitely you can do. Generally, I like to have really lean, skinny beats, but there are times when I will write something. It's almost like taking a camera and you are filming a scene, but instead of filming it from way up and zoomed out, I am bringing the camera down and I am zooming into a moment. It's almost as if I am zooming in second by second. And I'm going to state that all of this could happen in either beat one or beat two. And I'm going to tell the AI that. Now, why am I spending more time on chapter one, beat one? Because I want the AI to give my body of work something active. But like Lynn was saying, if you have a lot of content, it could confuse the AI and it could make it really dense and heavy. Now, you notice how all of my content is about a single moment and it is wrapping it all together really close in proximity. But everything that I have in here really should be spread out between beat one and beat two, which would encapsulate. If you take a look at beat one and beat two up here at the top, you actually see where she's thinking about things. And then there's a big dog. And then you see the dog approaching a smaller one. All of that could happen in those first two beats. What I'm putting here in beat one, that is actually going to take care of both beat one and beat two. I'm saying in beat one, this is happening. And I'm also going to have to designate what is showing up inside of beat two. Beat two would happen right here. And I am going to separate them. So we already have them talking, them seeing the content. We have them fully engaged in a conversation. Then we have the dog booming. Now, if once the prose is written, if I feel that beat one isn't strong enough, I might rearrange it. I might move this conversation. I might have the booming sound of the dog bark and have them glance at the dog and then back to their conversation. And then in another beat, have the dog running past in front of them. I have to decide which way is going to open that chapter better. But you know what? I don't have to decide that right now. I can always make that change once I have finished the whole manuscript. And often that first chapter will change a lot. So that dog is running across the park and it is discovered by Laura. And I'm going to say visually that the large dog is charging a small and let's see. Now, why am I going to make this a Pomeranian? Because remember, this is our hellhound. And I kept saying that it was a fluffy dog, but we need to give it a name. And I thought that this little bitty yappy little dog would be a cool contrast to this massive dog. And we're going to have the big dog scared of the Pomeranian. Now, am I going to name the breed of the big dog? No, because that big dog is not going to ever show up again. So that big dog is a toss away little character that is bringing to the actual story itself, but that big dog is not part of my main story. So that is beat two. Now we have Anna's swift mystical intervention. But you know what? We are not going to have Anna doing any magic in front of Laura because you know what? Laura doesn't know that magic exists. So we have to make that change. So let's now state that for beat three, we're going to state Anna is a mystery woman at this point.
And rather than have her intervene mystically, that dog's a hellhound, and I think he ought to be able to run the big dog off by himself.
And see, the Pomeranian is standing its ground. Now, you notice that I'm giving very specific points. I am everything in here, there is nothing in here that is reminiscing. Anna is a mystery woman at this point because Laura doesn't know her. The Pomeranian is standing its ground. We can definitely see the dog standing its ground. We know to Laura's shock, the big dog actually stops. It's an action. It whimpers. That is another action. And flees, tail between its legs. We can visualize all of that. All of your beats need to have action. Do not have them ruminating. Do not have them thinking about a plan without stating what that plan is. Do not do that because that vagueness will cause looping and it'll in turn also give you really vague prose. And you don't want your story to be vague. You want it to be very specific. So Anna cannot do mystical magic. So I am going to state, note, this is Laura's POV. So we can't know what is in Anna's head. So I don't want it to flip perspectives. Let's see. I'm okay with everything easing. I'm okay with Cleo laughing about the little furball dog, drawing laughter from both Anna. We don't want it from Anna, but the laughter between, say, Laura and Cleo, I'm okay with that because that laughter would be a release of tension because they thought that they were going to see a massacre. And I'm okay with them having that. I'm okay with Anna looking guarded. Now, that is not a thought that she has, that's just her body language. Now, Laura shares her personal connection to Central Park, grounding her character's background and connection to the location. How does she do that? And who does she share it with? Again, that is too vague. Lynn, in this case, would you maybe have Cleo and Laura talk about her mother and how they used to come here all the time? Would maybe Cleo tell her, hey, do you remember when your mom would bring us for picnics? How would you introduce that?
I would, but I hate to have them talking about things that they both knew, and that's what we used to call 2 old characters on a porch.
Mhm.
"Remember when blah, blah, blah." I might have her say it depends on the story and how often she goes there, whatever, but, "Oh, do you realize that's still there?" And, "Oh, they changed that. There's a new statue over here," or whatever, but something that is new to their experience, not reminiscing about what they've done in the past.
To Lynn's point, if you don't want to have them be talking heads, you could bring something up, but if you do that, then you have to be careful that you don't do it consistently. But to Lynn's point, why not keep the story in the here and now? And one of the ways that you can do that is remember what they're at the park to do? They are at the park with a map because they are playing a game. And that game is a murder mystery. So, shouldn't their conversation go back to the game and maybe wondering where they're supposed to meet everybody else when they are done with their portion of the map? So, that would definitely fill that in and allow the AI to get creative with this murder mystery game that they are participating in.
Yeah, because according to this beat that the reason they're at the park has gone away. Like, I had character in one chapter that's on death's door, and they have to get him medical attention, and once they get him to the hospital, he's not mentioned again for, like, 3 chapters. Like, nobody cares about him. You have to keep reminding the AI what they're supposed to keep in mind.
Now, I can say in the park, but I have to be really careful because it could put them in a different park if I'm not careful. Now, it should be listing that the location is Central Park, but you will notice that I continuously put the names in now for the location. And you will also notice that I'm using names instead of saying their attention returns. I am using their names because I don't want to give the AI any opportunity to get confused and bring in brand new characters. Now, when I'm doing a session like this and we're talking about things and explaining it, it really draws out how long it takes to go through and edit these. But I can guarantee you, when you sit down in your chair and you're doing this, it is much faster because you're not explaining every step that you're doing. So it cuts this process down, I would say, probably to a sixth, if not, I don't know, an eighth of what it's taking us today. So keep that in mind. Drilling down like this does not take this much time. It's just that we're explaining different steps.
However, sometimes when I'm doing this, I'm explaining to the AI as I go, but it doesn't at the same time I'm doing that, I'm typing and saying usually I type out what I am verbalizing to the AI, but I've worked with computers so long, I've been talking to them forever, so, "What are you doing? Why are you thinking that?" And I think last night Mira said, "If you're gonna do that, turn on your camera so I can see
I did
share
do that too.
share your screen." Well, good, I hope this helps you, Dion, and I hope I'll say it again, I hope the one thing that you bring out of this is you do develop your own process. I'm still tweaking mine to find out how I work with best with AI, but once I get it absolutely down, it's gonna make my book creation much faster. And I think it does help to watch different people. That's why it's good to go to multiple classes with multiple instructors to see their process, to see how they do it. And you can probably take a little piece from this one, a little piece from that one, a little piece from another one, and put them together to find your own.
Okay, so now we're looking at number 7. Laura's gaze is captured by the handsome stranger's sudden appearance. I'm okay with that, but I need to know what that sudden appearance looks like. And on number 7, I need to have Anna. Anna's talking with the ladies.
Yes, you do need to put a lot of detail in, especially if you're like Mira and you have a definite idea of where you want it to go. Sometimes with some beats, I don't care where it goes, and others I do definitely have an idea, so I do put in a lot more detail. And I would like to say that if you go to this much detail and flesh out your beats this much and get it exactly like you want, what the AI produces will be wonderful. However, on some days, I think they're all schizophrenic and psychotic and they forget their meds. And even though you have a wonderful outline, and when you go to generate prose, it won't look anything like your outline. And sometimes you just have to say, okay, that's the way it is today. You might change models. One day, one model will be better than another model. Some days, they're all off their meds. At that time, I think it's really best to switch into editing what you've already generated, or like in my case last night, I just went to bed because they were all hopeless. There was nothing that I was generating was usable at all. Did you generate after I went to bed, Mirror?
Oh yeah, I stayed up until about 4:30.
I knew you stayed up working on the beats, but did you generate anything that was decent?
Actually, I did because I was actually bridging another project that I'm working on. So I did generate some, but I was not doing whole chapters. I was just generating some extra chapter pieces that I was using to bridge some gaps.
Good. I was just beating my head against a wall and wasn't getting anywhere.
Now, again, I am going to a very detailed level here. And I'm doing that because this is my first chapter. I may not be as detailed as I go in further, but this is the very first time that she is introduced to some oddities. This is the first time that she's introduced to Anna, who is a mystery woman. But remember, Anna is going to introduce herself here, but she doesn't know anything. Laura knows nothing about the magical world. So I am setting up a lot of the different elements of my story right here. So I'm guiding the AI as I get further into this, and I may not have to do as much work I'm here in this first chapter. I may even spend a little bit of time in chapter two, but then once I hit three, four, five, six, I may not have to spend as much time because the AI begins to see what I like inside of my story beats. The AI begins, it's not necessarily that it's learning, but it's looking at that predictive index of how I am structuring things, and the AI will mimic that. So if I take the time to do that early on when I am going through a step, then that means that as I go to each chapter, the AI is then going to pick up that pattern of how I'm writing things. It's going to know, okay, she wants more of maybe the action than rumination. And that is something that I find is extremely helpful whenever I'm plotting. Are there any questions?
No, just agreement that it's worth it to put all this detail in that saves arguing with the AI later, which is true.
Now, remember how we had the locket, the one that her mother had given her? I don't see it anywhere on here, but remember that locket is something that she wears. And that's where me as a writer, I know that it's there. The AI probably has completely forgotten about it, but I'm going to say that little locket that she is wearing is actually feeling warm against her skin. That is just one of those little breadcrumbs that cues the reader in to think, oh, what's going on with this bucket? It's going to draw the reader to say, well, let me see what goes on with this.
Okay. Dion says, since you're putting in so much detail, wouldn't it be better to write the beats and present it to chat?
And not necessarily whether I write it in here or I write it on a Word document. I can do it either way. But today I'm showing you how you can break down each one, what's wrong with the beats, and how we can fix them.
And here she is giving AI a chance to fix it itself rather than going in and putting that detail in each beat, is probably I would do.
Here I've said 10. We have 11, 12, and 14. Let's take a look. Anna diverts conversation away. Now, she's not talking to the stranger. So we also have,
Well,
as the walk continues, Laura remains lost in thought. She is not lost in thought. We don't want her in thought. We don't want any of that happening. She could be staring at the mystery guy. Cleo's excitement for the art exhibit pulls her back, grounding their strong friendship. 13 is fine. 11 and 12 need a little bit of tweaking. As they prepare to leave, Laura's mysterious, there's a mark on her arm, starts to tingle, reacting to something, but she doesn't know. Now there's this right here. Is that going to leave something as a cliffhanger? No. But what would is that her arm starts tingling and she's not sure what it is. That could leave the reader with wondering what's happening.
is the arm in addition to the locket?
Yes, because a little tattoo or little image is going to actually appear on her arm, or the image that's already there is going to change
Okay.
because of the magic. So on beat 11, let's say she already knows Anna now, because remember, they introduced themselves. Okay, so to me, that's better because it states that Anna glances in the direction Laura is looking, sees the mystery man, and then she can't leave the park fast enough. So that already alerts Laura or maybe looks weird to her. And that is an action. Now let's see. Laura remains lost in thought. No, she does not. And we are going to have
Yeah, there's no action in that beat at all.
nope, no action whatsoever. Let's say that Cleo spreads out the map and looks and reads a clue in the murder mystery game. Let's go to beat 13. Beat 13, I am completely okay with beat 13.
I think I'd change the art exhibit to the game because they've changed their purpose for being in the park.
Okay.
Now that's a suggestion.
Yeah, and
She
so
can be perfectly okay saying, "No, I wanna leave it at the art exhibit."
and I could leave it there. Maybe it could be something that maybe the art community has put together. It could be part of that. But if I haven't woven in anything about maybe having Cleo or Laura working at the art, maybe I don't want to bring in another layer like that. But to Lynn's point, if it was part of the art exhibit, then that would be fine because then it would tell the reader something about the characters. It would be an opportunity to say maybe Cleo works there, but that's not part of our story. So, to Lynn's point, changing that ensures that the AI stays on task. Now, you saw that there are things that we have to change. If you don't change them now, you have to change them later.
And it's also, the point I'd like to get across is that it is Mira's story, not mine. So, I can see something and suggest something and say, "Maybe try this." It's up to her. All I've done is given a suggestion.
Oh, yeah. And I love collaborating with other authors. I think it's a great way to see your body of work. Now, there was a comment here, wasn't the locket supposed to get warm? Yes, it is warm against her skin. Now, magic that she's not aware of. So I'm indicating to the AI that it is warm against her skin. Now, I could say it becomes warm against her skin. That would be a lot clearer. And again, as you're writing,
I'll do that, Nina.
okay, now, 13, leave as is. It is a murder mystery game, not an art event. Now, it will leave that be as it is, but it will update that information. So let's look at beat 14. As I prepare to leave, Laura's mysterious, like her arm mark begins to tingle. I'm okay with that. But has this mystery man left yet? Or is he still there? So, when did the mystery man leave? Let's say that Laura notices that the mystery man has left. She reads another clue for the game with Cleo, but then her arm starts to tingle. And I'm going to tell it, please end this beat on a cliffhanger. Let's see, make the mark on her arm change shape. We want it to take on more of the shape of a flower blooming and let that confuse her. Where did I? Oh, yes, you are right. And surprisingly, it's crazy how you can have something misspelled and the AI can pick up on that. Now, I am really curious. We have given the AI a whole bunch of stuff to look at. Now, let's see how much of it pays attention to. You've noticed that I've highlighted that. I am copying it and poof, I am sending that off. So again, you see all the information and look, it better not be going down again. Now I did copy
Oh,
that.
no. Good, good, but
Here we go. It's
ah,
now, remember earlier, it gave me all the character descriptions here. I still have that information, and it's okay that he didn't give it to me here because I don't need it right here. I can still grab it from my character list because I will update my character list with any of the pertinent information. Let's see. They are discussing the murder mystery game that is active. They come to Central Park, that they've gone to the park to play. Laura freezes. She's fixated on a sign. Cleo concerned nudges. Are you okay? What's wrong? No, she doesn't pull out her mother's picture because let's not do that. Unless she has it on her phone. She could do that, but I'm probably going to change that. Number 2, a deep booming bark reverberates. Number 3, we know that Laura is looking at this tiny Pomeranian standing its ground. The larger dog whimpers. All of this is active. Cleo and Laura are amused. They're looking when Anna. Okay, so Anna is a mystery woman. Now, at this point, I have the information that I want in here. When I pull this off, then I will make the change myself. Remember when Lynn said that she would take what was there originally and then she would go ahead and pull it off and then she'd make the changes direct in like her Word document or in the LLM that she's going to use to write it with? I like to do it here because it keeps my story flow moving in my LLM. Because remember, I only use one thread. Lynn likes to use multiple threads to maybe identify or drill down into a specific part of her story. I like to keep everything in one location. So that's why I will do the heavy changing here in the LLM so that I can always go back to it. But I would copy this and then make any minor changes to it inside of my vellum folder so that I knew that it was moving in the direction that I wanted it to go. Now, again, think about how you want your beats. If you look at this one, it is active. Now, you can definitely show disbelief by body language, and the AI can do that. We do see action here with the dog, the large dog leaving. We do have the two friends being amused. We see the mystery woman approaching. The AI got it right here, but it did not get it right in other places because one, I don't want them to know who Anna is. So I'd probably take Anna's name out, or in parentheses, I would say that they turn in curiosity when the mystery woman, then in parentheses, I'd put Anna's name. Now back to the game. They're shaking off the sudden distraction. They're looking at the murder game. They're enthusiastic. Anna walks up. She introduces herself. At this point, it's okay to use Anna because she introduces herself and there's some joking. So all of that is something that you can see. Now, we do have Cleo and Anna continuing a conversation about the game. Laura's attention drifts when a mystery man. Now, here, I would probably say that Cleo and Laura tell Anna about the game. I would change that manually myself. Laura is entranced. Laura's looking at the guy. Cleo waves the game in front of her face. All of that is action. And Laura can notice what Anna is doing, but this right here is not going to fly because we're not in Anna's head. Now, Laura is distracted, and we can say that Anna might say, "What are you looking at?" And if you think about the directions that I gave earlier, I do state that Anna notices Laura. So if you give the AI information that might inadvertently change the perspective of the POV, then you know what? The AI is going to follow that direction. So this on number 9, where it says Anna notices, that was not the AI's fault. That was my fault as a writer because I actually just told the AI in what I was doing earlier that Anna was noticing where Laura was looking. I'm the one that introduced the head hopping here. So be really careful that you're watching how you're wording stuff to the AI because the AI can only write what you give it. So will have to change that in my vellum file. Now, Laura fills the locket. That is something that she can do because we're in her head, so we can know what she feels. She feels it around her neck. It's warming up. She hasn't experienced that before. The mystery man and the locket's sudden warmth intertwine, adding a layer. That's okay. After, let's see, a fleeting glance, Anna decides that she wants to leave the park. Let's see, after Anna sees. So all of this is stuff that Laura could see, but I would probably add something that Anna verbally excuses herself, and she seems really uneasy in Laura's estimation. So I would state that. Now, the clue, here they are trying to get back into the spirit of the game. That's all stuff that we can show. The AI knows its action. The duo, I would probably change the duo. Even though the AI might get that, I'm not going to leave duo there. I'm going to say Cleo and Laura. Make sure you're doing that because if you have multiple characters in a scene and you say duo and you have four people, then what makes up the duo? And let's see, the atmosphere of the evening changes, and it changes because she feels a tingling on her arm. She pulls back her skin and she discovers a mark transforming with petals. Now, that's exactly where I want it to end. Now that I've set this up, I could now go and grab my prompt. I could grab chapter 2, and then I would do the same thing as I am going through the process. Do you have any questions about the chapter that we fleshed out today?
Well, Nina asked a good question about the story. Does the story tone change per chapter?
Yes, it does.
Uh,
Think about a book whenever you read it, like a book that just has you completely engaged and you don't want to put it down. And it's one of those that it is 2 in the morning and you have to get up at 6 a.m. and you're like, oh my God, I'm so close to being done. I can finish it. Do the tones of each chapter sound the same? Is the tension level the same across all chapters? Or does it change depending on the scene that's occurring? So, right here, it talks about, says the mysterious mark transformed. So, what I will need to do is when Laura feels the sudden tingling on her arm, what I was talking about earlier, the mark could be like a little bitty birthmark on her arm. And then when she's feeling that, and I will need to straighten that out in my vellum folder, that she has a little bitty birthmark. And when it starts to tingle, it expands and looks like the bloom, like a blooming flower. And I want the chapter to actually end right there because that's a good cliffhanger because then the reader's going to be like, oh, what happens next? That's where I want it to end. So I will have to clarify what that mark is because that mysterious mark is her birthmark. That is correct. That mark is a birthmark. And the AI, if I leave it as a mysterious mark, the AI may not know how to write that in, but I can definitely say that it's a birthmark. And then that would be easy enough to explain that she has a birthmark and that it has changed. And then I can even cite that later on in some of the future chapters. The mystery man, her love interest, is looking through a water portal and he's spying on her and taking a look at what she is doing. And one of his elders is with him. And that's when they get a close up look at her birthmark. And they also know that the rare flower has opened that is bringing up more stuff. So, yeah, I I am planting the seed now about her birthmark and how it's changing because it opens the door for me to lay those little Easter eggs and those little breadcrumbs that are going to keep growing. Do you in every chapter on a cliffhanger and just make some bigger or some smaller depending on placement in the acts? Yes, I do. And I do that because I want to push the reader to turn the page to go to the next chapter. I also, every single chapter starts active and it has a hook that will keep the reader engaged. Are there any other questions? No, I would not keep that. I would just keep that. So the question is, would you keep the part hinting at deeper secrets waiting to be unveiled? No, I would not keep that. And if anything generated like that in my prose, I would completely kill that because I don't need that. That is not active. And that really isn't foreshadowing. You want something active. So I would remove that and I would just leave it with her birthmark has transformed and it now that it's unfolding and looks like the petals of a blooming flower. That's where I would end it. Because then in the next chapter, we learn more about the magical realm where her love interest is. So again, I would end it with that flower blooming on her arm and not there are secrets waiting to be unveiled because we don't want that. Any other thoughts? Questions?
I don't see any.
Is there anything that you would like to add, Lynn?
No, I think it's very one of the most important things about this prompt, I think, is the hook and the cliffhanger. And even though sometimes we have to grab the AI around the throat and manipulate it to get us what we want with it, it's really good to a very good, exciting story structure. It makes it hard for the reader to put the book down.
And one of the things that I know Lynn and I were talking about this last night when we were chatting. Last night, we were talking about how important it is for writers to know that it's okay for them to go in and tell the AI, because you know what? It's not the AI that is writing the story. It's you are directing the AI. Think of yourself as a director sitting in the chair, and this great story is unfolding, this story that lives in your head, and that you are directing the AI to perform for you. That is who you are in charge. The AI is not in charge. You are in charge. So make sure that you're directing the AI in creating the story that you want. Again, you write the story. It is your creation. You have created. You're only using the AI as a resource.
Definitely. And here's another place where we differ is you are more focused on visual, you're focused on screenplays, you have all that. I am not a visual person. So I focus on words more. I'm a writer. So I think of myself as the editor telling the AI, and the AI is really a beginning writer. It makes the same mistake that novice writers do. And you have to pound it with to teach it how to have strong writing, what strong writing is.
Well,
And so it's go ahead.
that's an interesting point, Lynn, because no two people tackle prompting the same way. I tackle it from a very visual, I can visualize the scene taking place right now in my head. And I am a very visual writer. So when I write very cinematic, I like to see things unfolding right before my eyes. And I love that action. If I can't see it, taste it, feel it, if if all of those senses are not there, then I can't immerse myself in the story. But that is how I guide the AI because that's how it clicks to me. Lynn, when she is doing it, she still gets that same effect with her stories, but she's coming at it as an editor. She is basically telling the AI, look, I'm giving you a writing lesson, and this is how you make something more active. We go about it two different ways, but you know what? We end up with the same result. We have a story at the end of the day. So again, if your process is different from mine or from Lynn's or from Cece's, or even different from Elizabeth Ann West from FA. And Lynn, remind me again, what does FFA stand for?
Future Fiction Academy.
Yes. If you look at all the different writers that you know, and if your process differs, that's okay because you know what? It's okay to have a different process. And if something that Elizabeth does resonates with you, or a piece that Cece does, or Lynn or I, or some other writer, you know what? If it resonates with you and it's something that you can roll into your process and it works for you, then create your own process with some of those things that make sense to you. Again, you're in charge. It is your story. It lives in your head, and nobody else can write the story that you can. And nobody can direct the AI the way you do. So, any other thoughts, Lynn?
No, not really, but it might help you. Just we were doing an impromptu session last night, and if you happen to be in a chat, I know we've opened some video sessions in the
Oh, the
oh
AI.
yeah, I'm saying I'm blanking out on. Or if you want to get together and do a Google session or a Zoom session or something, and write with other writers and see how the processes differ, throw ideas at each other.
Most
Thank you, Marigold, for the link.
I figured you were working up to that, so I thought I would help.
There you go.
To Lynn's point, if you are a member of the AI Writers Connection Discord, and if you have questions about writing, don't hesitate to reach out. I am there, Cece's there. You will find Lynn, you will find Nicole, you will find a host of people who are there who are happy to help. So, again, if you're not a member and if you would like to be, then just go ahead and click the link and it'll take you to the Discord. There is no fee. Everything that we do in AR Writer Connection within the Discord, all of the videos, all of that is free to you. It is a free resource for you to be able to partake in. And if there's any topics that you would like for us to cover, please be sure to leave a comment either in the Discord or on the YouTube channel. And this video will be uploaded as well. So, if there are no other questions, I'm going to conclude today's session. And Lynn, is there anything else that you would like to add regarding this before I conclude today?
I would like to say that Discord community is such a supportive, and of course, it's an AI friendly place. But it's very helpful. You'll find many different writers there with many different styles. And you can certainly take a little from one and a little from the other and create your own and get support when you need it.
Definitely. I want to thank all of you for being a part of this session. It's interactions like these that drive us all forward. It challenges our perspectives and broadens our horizons. And a big thank you, Lynn, for stepping in and providing your invaluable contributions. As we wrap up, remember again that the AI Writer Connection has many more e-global sessions coming up. So do stay tuned.
If you found today's discussion enlightening, we really invite you to our growing community on YouTube and Discord. Engage with like minded individuals and share your thoughts. Continue the conversation. On YouTube, don't forget to ring the bell, hit the like button, and subscribe to our channel for more content. And of course, your feedback and comments are always welcome. They help us shape future sessions.
I want to thank everybody again, actually, for joining the AI Writers Connection video today. Until next time, stay curious and keep writing. Yes, I can share that link. Give me just a moment to pull that up. Or Lynn, do you have the link handy
To which the
to
rest of them,
the AI Writers Connection? Let me see if I can pull
let's
that
see.
like for you guys. Give me just a moment to pull.
Yes, I can share the YouTube. Let me get it for a minute.
I think Nina beat us to it. Thank you, Nina. And thank you, everyone, for attending. And again, I do apologize if these sessions are so long. I have no concept of time. But again, if y'all have any questions, just be sure to reach out. And thank you for attending.